Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. I'm Leader of the Council and I'm Chairman of Cabinet. Good evening to anybody who may be following us online. I'm just looking around the room and I see that there are no members of the public present, so I will just dispense with our normal advisory notices beforehand regarding health and safety, but do remind everybody please to have your mobile phones turned to silent. Let us please get straight into the agenda. Agenda item 1, please. Apologies for absence.
Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Laborie.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest matters before the meeting. Are there any additional declarations this evening, colleagues? None indicated. Thank you. And this is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. These are on pages 1 to 16. Are they approved? Thank you. Item 4, this is to confirm that there are items of business in both Part 1, the open part of this meeting, and Part 2, the closed part. The agenda is fully describes the issues in both Part 1 and Part 2, and the last item in Part 1, which is item 13, is a preview of the matters that will be discussed in private, which we provide to try and give greater transparency to those issues that must be considered privately owing to their confidential nature. And that is, as I say, to confirm that there are items in both Part 1 and Part 2. We will break between those two parts to break the YouTube link and to ask members of the public that have just arrived to retire. So we can now move straight into agenda item 5. This is the Hillingdon 0 to 19 years core offer to children, young people and their families. And ordinarily, Councillor O'Brien would present this, but I will do so in her absence. Colleagues, this report is effectively in two parts. The first part relates to the transition from the children's centres to family hubs, and the second part relates to the future of our 3 early years nurseries. Recommendations 1 to 4 on page 19 seek approval to roll out across the borough a new family support service to be delivered from the family hubs, which builds upon the experience and learning of having established our first family hub at the Civic Centre last year. In fact, it might have even been the very end of the year before that. Appendix A, which is at page 37, summarises the rationale for establishing the family hubs. Families tell us the importance of their being able to access integrated help early and locally. It's important for public service also to systematically identify early need to prevent that need escalating. Delivering of holistic care, accessing or being signposted to a broader support services such as debt management has also been indicated as important to residents. The absence of a single non-stigmatising point of access for family services is reflected in the findings of the independent review of children's social care in May 2022 and Ofsted's thematic inspection of early years service. Combined with the extensive evidence of the importance of the first 1001 days of life, which determines future life chances, the government policy is to establish family hubs in each local authority area to deliver the Start for Life programme and the Healthy Child programme. Guidance on establishing family hubs that must be followed by local authorities that have received government funding for that purpose have been published, and we have been observing of that guidance even though we have not received funding and are not bound by it. The reason for us not being a funded authority is that we are ahead of the game, having established our first family hub in 2021 prior to the announcement of the government programme. Our family hubs will provide those families with a single point of access to integrated family services. They will be grounded in local communities and shaped by and focused on that community's needs. They will provide a range of core and flexible services at each hub as described at Table 1.1, page 46. The model will operate through a hub and spoke model. Table 1.2 on page 49 shows the locations of each hub and the additional delivery points. It is expected that a broader range of professionals and services than are presently provided by the Children's Centre will exist within the family hubs. And it is also expected that should the digitalisation and online registration of things like births not occur, that will also take place at our family hubs. The consultation with residents was undertaken independently by the Family Hubs network and showed strong support for the overall idea and the range of proposed services to be delivered from the hubs, particularly by families with children with special education needs or disabilities. The network's report is at Appendix B, commencing page 53. The principles underpinning our proposed family hubs model are shown at pages 38 and 39, and they were generally well received by the respondents to the consultation, as described at pages 70 and 71. It is fair to say that the respondents did oppose the closure of those children's centres identified in tables 1.3 at page 51. The Family Hubs network commented that opposition was in part indicative of the excellent services and support that respondents appreciated at the Children's Centre, and also by the understandable fear that centres would close and the new strategy proved to be an empty promise. Well, colleagues, we deliver on our promise, and so that concern may be discounted in my view. The conclusions drawn from the consultation by the Family Hub Network are reported at page 101 and include that it generated substantial response and clear findings that the draft Family Hub strategy meets with residents' approval. The closure of some children's centres is likely to be accepted if trusted staff begin to deliver familiar services in new settings as children's centres wind down. I've been given assurance that that will be the case. The transition from children's centres to the Family Hubs strategy, should the strategy be accepted, will be overseen by a Family Hubs delivery group. Our Children and Families and Education Select Committee will be invited to incorporate in their forward plan for 2024-25 a review of the implementation to ensure that we deliver on those promises made to residents. But this will be a matter for the chairman of that committee to determine as they operate independently from Cabinet. The second part of the report, and this relates to recommendations 5 to 7, concern the future of our early years nurseries delivered from 3 purpose-built buildings co-located with 3 of our existing children's centres. The issues are set out at page 25. Since this matter was previously considered by Cabinet, the Government have expanded the entitlement to free early years nursery places, which is to be rolled out in phases. This is expected to increase the demand for nursery places within the borough. But the scale of that increase cannot be predicted at this time, but it is anticipated that closure of those 3 nurseries now would result in a deficiency of places within the borough moving forwards. To enable the continuity of early years nursery provision from these 3 locations, Recommendation 5 seeks Cabinet approval to seek an alternative provider from the children's care market, which is at option 2 at page 27. Option 1 is thought not likely to be practicable, as the increase in fees that would require for full cost recovery would greatly exceed the prevailing market rate, and option 3 is not supported at this time. The future of these 3 centres, forgive me, technology for you. We're getting to it. The future of these three centres will be brought back to Cabinet for consideration early in the new year once market testing has been completed. This is in accordance with Recommendation 6. Recommendation 7 reaffirms our commitment to ensure, as far as practicable, that there are sufficient childcare facilities within our borough to meet the expanded childcare offer. Colleagues, are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 6, the Older People's Plan. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to have the report in front of Cabinet tonight that will provide an update on the development regarding services for older people and the Council's Older People's Plan over the past year. We adopted a new strategy in November last year and carried forward many actions that were previously held within our Older People's Plan. We continue to engage with older residents both via our partners and through our Older People's Assembly. I attend this regularly and in fact was there yesterday with the leader where we delivered our commitment to deliver services and that was reinforced yesterday. It was a very, very well attended, it always is a very, very well attended session and challenges me on a regular basis for services for older people. So within the plan we have grouped activities under the headings of safety and security, preventative care, keeping healthy and independent and supporting older people in the community. I take this opportunity within this plan to praise our falls prevention education tool and around strength and balance. This is a well-respected toolkit and a balanced program, falls program within North West London. It is a shining example of an excellent falls program. Over 170 residents have attended workshops and 2,500 toolkits have been distributed through libraries, sheltered housing and the such like. It's helping older people prevent falls by giving groups of exercises to strengthen and balance themselves. It really, really is a good toolkit. I would encourage everybody to have a look at that. Our tea dances that continue to be very popular. For our seated exercise, those not able to move about as easily, we have a wonderful chair aerobics programme which has improved activity levels for over 2,000 residents. In terms of our safety, our telecare service helps people remain safe at home and is free for the over 75s. This is something that we look to develop going forward within our digital refresh, if I can actually say that. In partnership with Age UK, we have residents benefiting from advice and information with over 796 residents being helped to claim £1.3 million in benefit. So that is a fantastic piece of partnership working, enabling our older people to have benefits that they possibly wouldn't have known anything about. Our work on dementia continues to be another shining example of this borough. We have 35 organisations who are active members of the Hillingdon Dementia Action Alliance, and they work together to make Hillingdon a dementia-friendly borough. The Dementia Cafe is exceptionally successful. We have in other places a range of physical activities, tennis, chair exercise, golf, all offering an opportunity for social connections and physical and cognitive activities, and it supports both those with dementia and those who are caring for people with dementia. The Admiral Nurses is another service that helps people in their homes at the end of their life. There's lots in this report. I won't go on about it too much. Please look at it. We will continue to look at older people's services and listen to their needs and endeavour to shape our partnership with health and the voluntary sector to enable people to live healthy and active lives safely for at home as long as possible. I would like to thank the Health and Social Care Select Committee for looking at this report, and I'm asking the Cabinet to note the progress of the developments in this report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Is that report noted?
Noted.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, Hillingdon's Youth Offer and Delivery Model. Again, in the absence of Councillor O'Brien, I will speak to this report, and I will be somewhat briefer than my previous delivery. Hillingdon's Youth Offer and Delivery Model. The report seeks approval for the adoption of a completely different model. Our present one is dependent upon the delivery of activities at recognised youth club buildings that the council have. This offer has become increasingly dated, its attendance is reducing, and its appeal is such that I understand that less than 1 in 150 of our young 10 to 19-year-olds are presently engaged by our offer. By taking these activities out of the building and into the community, as requested by our younger people and delivered in a range of facilities, including the open space, but also community hubs, libraries, other community buildings, we will be able to expand the accessibility to these activities, expand the range of activities on offer, and will actually increase the number of sessions that we are able to deliver. By changing, not only though are we seeking to improve the level of service, and certainly will be my expectation that we are more successful than reaching 1 in 150 of our young people. Our present youth service is delivered under 2 separately managed teams, a targeted team and a universal services team. By bringing about this change and bringing those 2 teams together under a single line management, we are able to release management costs, making efficiency savings to the council. This change, therefore, complies greatly with the ethos of this administration, which is to make our services even better, but in delivering value for money and savings by being willing to confront delivery models and modernising them to meet the changing needs of our residents. The 2 recommendations are that we adopt the youth offer model as at Appendix 1, but also asks us to note the overall positive response from the consultation which is informed the youth offer for Hillingdon, and that consultation response is included within the report. I move those 2 recommendations. Are those recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 8, the options for the future ownership and operations of Uxbridge Golf Course and Haste Hill Golf Course. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. Well, as the title of the item indicates, we are keen, we have decided the time has come to look at the future operation and ownership of these 2 golf courses. Golf obviously is a sport, I think some would call it, that quite a number of residents of our borough participate in, and these are 2 courses upon which that they can exercise. However, the facts are that we currently subsidise this activity quite significantly, and further, both courses have reached a point where significant investment is needed to bring them up to a higher standard. And we believe it's probably not the time for us to ask the non-golfing residents of our borough to subsidise those that want to play. And as such, we think that the appropriate way forward is to look once again at the best options for the future ownership or operations of these 2 courses, and in due course make a firm decision. So this is the purpose of this report is to, and the purpose of the recommendation is to set the process in motion, not to actually make a firm final decision. That will come later once the report back occurs. So I think, just to be quite clear, this is not a recommendation to close the courses. It's not a recommendation of any such sort, and for the time being they will remain in operation just as they are at the moment. But we want to look at the options going forward. And on that basis, I move the recommendation at the top of page 250.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bianco. And in the context of previous agenda items and the issue of pressures on council funding, it's no longer tenable that we carry on subsidising golf enjoyed by a small number on the shoulders and income of all of our residents. And I say that as a keen golfer, but not a player at either of these courses. Unfortunately, I've yet to have the experience of playing Haste Hill. Colleagues, are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Turn to agenda item 9, the proposals for commissioning of services from the voluntary sector. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Leader. I move the recommendations which are contained on page 258. This is another exciting development in the partnership between us as a local authority and the very important voluntary sector, which is in many cases well established throughout Hillingdon, insofar as it gives us the opportunity to work closer in partnership and develop a clearer understanding of how we ensure that the resources, which are still available to the extent that they have been in the past, are more directly and effectively channeled to benefit a greater majority of our residents. So it is a change that is required to recognise the changing environment in which we are all living. And the recommendations in particular, the first one builds upon the work that's already been established in terms of with the Carers Consortium, and that provides a further 18 months extension of the partnership arrangement that we entered into formally this April, whilst the others are in effect given a 12 months transition to develop the partnership in a style which will be beneficial for the residents, as indicated in my earlier statement. Going forward, what this means in reality is that my two Cabinet colleagues who are listed and described in recommendation 6 will have a greater input and say in terms of how the services link in with the, in effect, day-to-day services that we are already providing. And on that basis, as I said, having moved the recommendations, I would strongly suggest that they are approved by Cabinet as the next stage in this particular development.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mills, and I very much agree that this is a necessary step. And rather than it being a detraction, this opens new doors for the expansion of our third sector to provide support services to us as a contracted partner. I very much welcome this development. Colleagues, are the 6 recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 10, the Housing Forward Investment Programme 2023-24. Councillor Goller, are you dealing with this?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you. This report starts on page 275 of the pack, and it addresses the governance and control arrangements which exist over the Works to Stock programme for the 10,300 or so council houses which are held within the Housing Revenue Account. This is a major programme, and the approved capital budget for 23-24 amounts to just under £29 million. This programme seeks to direct our investment towards improvements to the medium to long-term, sustainable and viable elements of our housing stock, with priority being attributed to enhancements in energy efficiency, elimination of damp, and indeed broader issues of householder safety. The proposed measures contained within this report are designed to streamline the governance and approval process for this budget, whilst ensuring that key controls exercised by Cabinet members are maintained. Very specifically, the proposals contained within this report are as follows. Firstly, that the remaining programme of works for 23-24, as set out in the table on page 280, be approved. Secondly, that the Corporate Director of Place is given delegated authority to approve the contractors who are already engaged with the Council, either under a framework agreement or a term contract, with the medium-term objective being that all contractors should ultimately be engaged under a framework agreement. Thirdly, all capital releases for the programme be delegated to the Corporate Director of Place, subject to minor variations being considered and approved by the Cabinet Member for Property, Highways and Transport. And finally, that the comprehensive regime of quarterly reporting to Cabinet be established, with Cabinet maintaining discretion over any proposed material changes. Neither of these measures should reduce administrative effort and accelerate progress on the programme, whilst Cabinet will retain control over the ultimate conduct of the remaining plan. I therefore move recommendations 1 to 5 as set out on page 276 of the pack. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goddard. This change is to be very much welcomed. It streamlines our administration, reduces bureaucracy, whilst retaining financial control. Colleagues, are the 5 recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 11, the outcome of the consultation of the rebanding of parking penalty charge notices. Shown as Councillor Lavery here.
No. Are you going to do it?
Defer.
Or do you want to delegate it to Councillor Lavery to make at a later date?
Let's defer. We're meeting again very shortly. Let's defer that one. My apologies for the omission of that one. I hadn't spotted that one in my preparation. Item 12, the monthly Council Budget Monitoring Report. Month 3, Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Leader. This report, which starts on page 297 of the pack, deals with the Council's projected results for the financial year to the 31st of March 2024, as they stood at the 30th of June 2023, that is, in other words, month 3 of the financial year. The national economic outlook is challenging for local authorities, and there is perhaps no better illustration of this than the plight of Birmingham City Council, which has been widely publicised, has had to file for the local authority equivalent of bankruptcy. Whilst the Consumer Price Index has now fallen from a peak of 11.1% to the current 6.8%, its damaging impact on the economy has been experienced by households, businesses and government alike. Inflation has stayed with us for longer than originally forecasted by the Bank of England and has had a material impact on public pay settlements and commodities in particular. Central government has been forced to limit the levels of grants made available to local authorities, and this has effectively reduced grant funding in real terms. The principal measure used by the Bank of England to control inflation has been the imposition of increases in interest rates. And we must remind ourselves that we've now seen 14 increases in rates since February 2022, at which time bank base rate was standing at 0.25%, whilst today we're at 5.25%. Whilst base rate increases, by a base rate of 0.25% was never going to be sustainable. This pattern of increases has further inhibited both corporate and domestic spending power, bringing with it challenges for the Council's collections of council tax and business rates, and creating reductions in the availability and pace of infrastructure programmes. There are, however, modest early signs that inflation is shrinking and that perhaps we are nearing the peak for interest rates. However, the damaging legacy of both inflation and interest rate growth will remain with us for some time. We continue to be cautious and vigilant so far as our forecasting of results is concerned, and I'm satisfied that Hillingdon's response to the financial challenges faced is realistic and robust. We manage our costs by using budgetary controls, and we will maintain our levels of debt at existing modest and sustainable levels. We remain resilient in our response to financial pressures. There has been minimal change to our budget monitoring position as reported last month, and hence the General Fund revenue account continues to indicate a small underspend of £23,000 against budget. However, as previously reported, we have had to absorb an additional 2.6 million cost in respect of anticipated staff pay settlements. Once projected uses of earmarked reserves for items such as continuing legacy COVID pressures, core inflation, and the older person's discount for council tax are recognised, we continue to project a 23-24 year-end position on earmarked reserves of £14.5 million. In addition to this, we have also unallocated general balances amounting to £26.8 million. So in total, we're projecting that we have £41.3 million worth of reserves at our disposal at the end of the 23-24 financial year. As I've said in earlier reports, it is our objective to retain and build our reserves, notwithstanding the continuing economic challenges. We should expect a number of further transformation programmes, which are currently at early stages of development, to yield a significant strengthening of reserves, which are not yet reported here. Our existing programme of savings for 23-24 will achieve our entire target of £22.8 million, albeit that there may prove to be delays in the delivery of items amounting to £1.08 million. General Fund capital expenditure for the financial year is now indicating an underspend within the year of £11.2 million, with anticipated expenditure expected to amount to £151.5 million. This is largely due to constraints of capacity in the construction sector and has caused delays to the West Drayton and Useley Leisure Centre and HOAC projects. The dedicated schools grant position also remains unchanged from the reported position at month 2. The housing revenue account continues to project a full year outturn, which is identical to budget at this stage. However, with capital expenditure within the housing revenue account for the year is projected at £117.6 million, which indicates a positive cost variance of £529,000 from budget. I therefore move recommendation 1 of the report set out on page 298 of the pack. Part B of the report on page 320 of the pack sets out a number of financially oriented recommendations, and these are itemised A and B. These recommendations are pretty well self-explanatory, and therefore I also move recommendations A and B. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goddard, and for your continued sound stewardship of our monies. Colleagues, are those recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Before we turn to agenda item 13, I will unusually return to agenda item 11, because having looked at the papers, I noticed that the request is that we submit this through to TEC, the London Council's, the Transport Environment Committee, and the date of the next meeting is in early October, and I therefore believe we should, for expediency, consider that matter today. I will therefore introduce this item. The issue relates to the rebanding of penalty charge notices. These are notices issued by the local authority for infringement of highway offences, and the present banding is shown at on page 285 at paragraph 4. We are presently operating in Band B, the lower level of charges, and the proposal is to move to Band A. It is noted that from the period prior to COVID to the period after COVID, 2021 to 22, the latest year, the number of penalty notices issued by the local authority has increased by 29%. It is believed that part of the reason for that increase is that the lower banding level, the lower level of penalty charge, is not acting as a sufficient deterrent to the breaching of our rules, making our highways less safe and more congested. The proposal, therefore, is to move to the higher level, Band A. That was subject to consultation, and it is not a surprise to me that a strong voice in opposition to both the enforcement, further action by the Council to discourage illegal parking was objected to, along with an increase in the penalty notice being objected to. It is not a surprise to me that being the case. However, I do believe that the public interest of maintaining safe highways and the free flow of traffic, and deterring offences such as parking and other highways offences is worthy of us approaching the authorities to enable us to move to the higher band A. The three recommendations set out that the process by which we move this forward. We do this by way of, as I say, first taking it through the London Council's Transport and Environment Committee, who agree. Subject to their agreement, it moves on to the Mayor of London. Subject to the Mayor of London's agreement, it then moves on to the Secretary of State for Transport. So there's quite a lengthy process going on. It should be noted, I will draw attention to the fact that this initiative may be overtaken by events, because London councils are commencing consultation very, very soon about moving the whole of London onto the higher band, and should that go ahead, it would negate the need for our separate application. However, one cannot rely upon that being the case, and therefore I move the three recommendations so that we can be assured that we will move to the higher band in due course. Are those three recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. My apologies for the having to muck around with the agenda. Agenda item 13 is a public preview of two matters to be considered in private. These relate to property matters. That concludes part one of the meeting. I ask members of the public please to retire. If we break the YouTube link, we will then move into part two. Thank you.